Hi everyone. I'm going to go over the evidence of what's happening, what's happening in Springfield, and I'm an Ohioan myself, so I have a little bit of context for you. For example, this guy here looks like a Canada goose. In Ohio, they're everywhere. So on the right, we have a picture of this guy holding what appears to be a Canada goose. The goose appears to be dead. And I say that because this is a picture, a still shot that is taken. And if the goose were alive, it would be moving around a lot. And so it would be kind of blurry. So the fact that it's not suggests to me that it's already dead. And on the left, we have a comment by somebody who says that her neighbor told her that her daughter lost her cat and that it was strung from a tree, and Haitians are around, and they were carving it up to eat it while it was hanging in this tree. So she heard from her neighbor, who heard from her daughter, that this was happening. And then she heard from someone else that they're doing it to dogs and ducks and geese, which she claims comes from rangers and police who are saying that. So that's what this woman is saying. We haven't talked to rangers and police, so we don't know if they're really saying it. We haven't talked to the daughter or the neighbor to see if they're. All we know is that this woman is saying all this stuff happened. That's all we know. And the picture at the right is a guy holding a dead goose. That's all we know. He's holding a goose that is most likely dead. We don't even know that. Perhaps he's going to go home, carve it up, and eat it. Or perhaps he's being a good Samaritan and a car just hit it 2 seconds ago and he picked it up off the road and is now carrying it off the road to some other place. I mean, we don't really know what this guy is doing. All we have is this picture. And he's not eating any geese in this picture. So it doesn't really provide evidence that what she's saying is true. It just provides evidence that a guy is carrying a goose. And I'll get back to this picture in a little bit with some more details. So that's first piece of evidence is this here. Second piece of evidence is a lot of residents are coming to the meetings, and they're really upset about all the Haitians in the community. So as a little bit of background, it's not just a couple of Haitians that moved in, it was a lot of them. And they're here legally, and I don't know exactly what the legal term would be to describe their status, but in my mind, I think refugees. Like they're here legally, and they're allowed to be here because they're escaping bad conditions. And so let's see what they say at the meeting, so you can hear kind of what they're saying.
You guys are just sitting up there and suicide. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from this. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs.
Okay, and here's another person. And, you know, feel the emotion in these people's voices. They're upset.
All of the old familiar spots bearing new signs in an unfamiliar language. I watched as groups of strangers walked around the city like lost tourists, and it was like a punch in the gut. A terrible sadness came over me, and I began to cry. I immediately started to think back to when I was little, walking from my grandma's house on South Fountain through downtown and all the way to Snyder Park. I feel like we have been invaded by some sort of pest. I'm angry that my friends and family are packing up and moving away. I'm angry that foreigners are using up the resources that were set up for the Americans that reside here. I'm angry that another country's flag was being flown in our city. I'm angry when I see our businesses and recreational areas littered with garbage left by people that do not know or understand our laws and culture and are making no attempt to learn about them. And let me be clear, this is not about race. This is about people being given the privilege of coming here from another country and having no respect for our people, our land, or our life's work. People living their life here the way...
Okay, so getting back to where's my my presentation. Sorry for the presentation, it was just the easiest way to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some context about Haiti. I've been there. They seem like nice people to me. My impression when I was there is that they live in extreme poverty and they have extreme dependence on the U.S. for survival. Perhaps my opinion might be a little biased. I went there on a cruise ship. And so all these rich people come, and then, you know, what I did is I walked outside the perimeter they told us to not walk outside of. And then I saw, like, a whole different view of Haiti. One thing I do know, and, you know, I'm going to say some negative things, but I'm never going to mention names, because I'm not pointing the finger at anybody here. So Haiti makes our underwear, and the conditions that it's made are deplorable even for sweatshops. I could get into detail. It's pretty bad. 98% of U.S. clothing, so every time we go to any store and buy something, 98% of what we have to choose from comes from workers that work in sweatshop conditions by U.S. standards. So Haiti is one of those places. The history of Haiti, Christopher Columbus, quote, discovered it, and the Spanish took over. Then the French took over. Our good friend Napoleon, the imperialist who was going around getting land everywhere and dominating everyone. And it was used as a slave port. They regained independence, I think maybe in the 1600s or something, and had a revolution. And then afterwards, they got occupied by the U.S. Currently, right now, they're still recovering. Remember that awful, awful hurricane? Remember that? That was scary. They're still recovering from that. And they have deadly political coups going on and a lot of gang violence. I mean, it's not good there. And that is why those refugees are here, is because they're dealing with this. And we said, okay, you know, come here, we will help you. So we are helping them. And part of helping them is giving them a place to live and social services and stuff like that. And the town of Springfield, though, is all of a sudden has all of these people. And so the help that the U.S. provided to this group of people is now being disproportionately borne by the people in Springfield. That's one way to look at it. So Haitians are different than Americans. They have a different culture. Ironically, right now, more Haitians are Christian than Americans are Christian. But Haiti also has a history of voodoo. A lot of them went to New Orleans, and there's all the shops and stuff in the French Quarter with voodoo this and voodoo that. And it was the prevalent religion in the 1600s when they had their revolution. But now it's a prevalent part of the culture of Haitians who are actually Christian. And because it's not written down, it's orally passed on, and it's only really understood by people on the inside. Outsiders do not understand anything about what it actually is. Generally, Christians attack it as devil worship. I mean, come on, you have a doll and you're sticking pins into it. That doesn't go over well with Christians. The hanging the cat from the tree and, eating the cat is a oblique reference to voodoo. So, cat hanging from a branch, and eating it, that's actually not what they do. And this guy is clearly not going to do any voodoo, because back in the 1600s, when they sacrificed animals, the animal was sacrificed alive, not dead. They don't eat them like wild animals with, big red eyes or anything like that. I mean, that is not what they do or ever have done. So clearly this guy is not doing that. And the description here sounds a lot like a reference to voodoo. It's the hanging from trees comment that makes me think that. But something that I would like to comment on is that what this person is saying happened. If that actually happened, and I'm taking no position on whether it did or didn't, but if that actually happened, I guarantee you the police would have been called, reports would have been filed, and there would be investigations. If somebody sees that, they are calling the police. I guarantee you. I mean, what would you do? If you're sitting in your home, having a nice, calm chamomile tea, and you look out the window and you see people, like, carving up and eating animals hanging from a tree, what would you do? You'd call the police, for sure you would, because it would be scary. So, the reports to police of this behavior happening, to the extent that they do or do not exist, is very important. And I've seen online that a city official has said that there's no evidence that this is going on, which would of course mean that there are no reports. So people are saying that, which that means that it's not happening. Because I guarantee you, if this were happening, people would have called. People would have definitely called. So she's saying that she was told this by rangers and police. But if this is actually happening, there would be official reports, and the city official would not be saying this is not happening. So it comes down to that. Are there official reports, or are there not official reports? The only way to know that is to look at the official reports. We can't look at what this woman is saying. You can't, listen to me. I don't know. Nobody knows. What are the reports? And who is the person that is most likely to have access to said reports and know that they exist? Certainly the city manager has better access than you or I. But, you know, as was said in the debate, the city manager could just be making it up. That's what Trump said. The city manager is just saying that because it makes him look better. In other words, the city manager is lying. So, okay. The question then becomes, who's lying here? Someone is. Who? Where's the answer? Rangers and police. What reports do they have of, you know, people doing this terrible, awful, demonic stuff, according to, you know, the way it's often presented? Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story which is directly related to what is going on in Springfield. And you'll see in a minute. Totally different scenario, same exact thing. So I was born in Ohio and lived in Ohio all my life. And then I moved to California for work in my 30s. And I moved in a couple places in California during my working time, and ended up in Butte County. And my city is a sister city to Paradise, California, which some of you may have heard of. It's that town with 30,000 people. And my town in Ohio has 30,000 people. It's a, you know, distant suburb of Cleveland. So, you know, imagine where you live if you're in a suburb. You know, how many people are in that town, you know? Like, that's a lot of people. So, 30,000 people, and it burned down almost instantaneously in an unprecedented fire that just kind of exploded in a way that the firefighters weren't prepared for, the, you know, the people in the city with their evacuation plan, you know, it all fell apart because the fire moved so fast, and it was like it had surrounded the whole town before you knew it. So I was going to the coffee shop, and next thing I know, I'm driving down the hill with fire on both sides, you know. And once I escaped that and I knew I was safe, me and, you know, most people pitched in with a rescue effort, and we just kept going until we collapsed. And I could tell you story after story after story about the heroism of what everybody did. But it'll take too much time. So the powerful voices in town. Some powerful voices did little or nothing to actually help this, you know, absolute disaster, but released statements about the need for help and how much they cared. But, like, you know, during that critical time, you know, the day of, the day after, the day after, the day after, that first month, they really didn't do anything. And my employer was one of these. And eventually, you know, a couple months after the fire, I decided to leave my employer. Now, I'm not going to mention who they are, because again, I mean, it's totally irrelevant, and there's a whole other side of that issue, and you know, besides, who cares, right? We all know the powerful do this sometimes. Sometimes the powerful chip in, and sometimes the powerful take advantage of the weak and capitalize on it. So we all know that. So I saw that happening in my town. So it doesn't matter, and we don't need to drag anyone through the dirt on that one. I'm just making the point. But I will call out the powerful voices that helped, like Dutch Bros. Dutch Bros became heroes in my mind. I even went there and bought one of their coffees. They're a local chain that is really prevalent there, but you know, there's no Dutch Bros in Ohio. they took out a billboard immediately. They took out a billboard that you see immediately when you're driving down the hill. And on that billboard, it just said Paradise Strong. And when they did that, it was so important to the community. I can't even tell you. I lived next to Incident Command, so I kept going down there because, my yard was on fire for a little bit, and the fire line was inching, and I was trying to figure out, am I going to have to evacuate? Where am I going to go? All the hotels are full, so if I have to evacuate, I'm going to have to drive hours and hours just to get somewhere to stay, and I have parrots, and most hotels do not allow parrots, so I can't stay in a hotel even if I could find one, so I was kind of in a bad spot. And so I kept going to Incident Command to see if I was going to have to do that, because the fire line was very close. And once they were assured that the line was controlled and it wouldn't jump the highway, which took them 3 days, then I switched my focus to working rescue. Then I went down to Incident Command to figure out, how can I insert myself in here, because I'm not a member of the Red Cross or anything. How can I help? And that eventually got me to working at the shelter, where I did dawn till dusk, until I collapsed, like a lot of other people did. And if I wasn't there, a lot of those animals would have died, because we didn't have any expert in exotics. I was the only one. So I did what I could do. But Dutch Bros really helped, because while I was doing all of this, everybody else was doing the same thing. And everyone who comes there would look at the sheet of all the missing people. And it was just starting to really sink in everybody's mind, the gravity of what had just happened. Because escaping the fire, we have flames all around us, and we're just thinking, get out or we're going to burn to death. Everybody's just like, holy crap. And then we're looking at these long lists of the dead and the missing, and they're all elderly in their 80s. And I'll tell you what I was thinking. I was remembering all those cars I drove by and didn't help. Other people, so many of them, mentioned their elderly neighbor that they didn't check on because they had 5 minutes to get out, and they just got out, and the elderly couldn't move as fast. So the dead were primarily the elderly. The person I saw burning alive in their car by the side of the road, most likely an elderly person. So we're all looking at this list, and I'm thinking, what did I do? I should have helped those people. I don't know what they were thinking, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same thing. Because everybody's just staring at those lists. They're not looking for somebody. They're just staring in shock and looking at all the names. And Dutch Bros, when everybody's doing that, takes out this billboard that says Paradise Strong. So when they did that, they got on it right away. That billboard was up right away. When they did that, it changed the dynamic. People stopped with the negativity and the terrible feelings of trauma and shock. They're like, be strong. We're going to get through this. That's what Dutch Bro did. And I wear my Paradise Strong sweatshirt, my Paradise Strong t-shirt. I wear that everywhere because I think about what Dutch Bro did. It turned into this whole big thing. But it's really Dutch Bro that started it, because right away they did that. And it completely changed the community from into, all right, this is a terrible situation, let's go, instead of, getting trapped in guilt or whatever other negative emotions happen in a disaster like this. That's what Dutch Bro did. That's how they used their powerful voice to help the community. And boy, did they help. And so I wear that. I wear that shirt in Ohio. I walk around. Nobody in Ohio even knows what it means. Nobody even knows about the fire. Nobody knows anything about it. But we do. So I'm telling you all the story, figuring a lot of you probably don't know this because it is exactly what's going on in Springfield, what happened in my community once the flames were out. Because 30,000 people is a lot of people. And we had this huge influx of people into our sister town. They had nowhere to go, nowhere to stay. The hotels were full up, and hotels were gouging and charging $400 a night for a room, if they did have one. So you have families camped out. A lot of them don't even have tents yet, because Walmart kept running out of tents. And every piece of green everywhere is just littered with people who are still shocked and don't know quite what to do because they just lost everything and all they have is themselves and maybe their pets that they saved, which I'm at the shelter trying to take care of and keep from dying. And some of them did, but I tried my hardest. So what happens, which is what always happens, what's happening in Springfield, is this strains the social systems. Because all of a sudden you have all of these people, but you don't have an immediate expansion in the social systems in the community to handle them. And the whole year of 2019 was picking up the pieces, and a large part of that was the fact that, this disaster was so huge that we just couldn't handle it. So every day is just picking up pieces and, being in, quote, emergency mode. And then COVID hit. And it's emergency mode once again. So here's what I'm talking about. Like unemployment, right? The campfire, it didn't just burn down 30,000 homes, it also burned down a lot of the businesses in that area too. So all these people without homes also do not have jobs. There were tons of people unemployed by the campfire in one way or another. And then right after the campfire, the pandemic hit. And a bunch of people are unemployed by that too. So everyone is filing applications for unemployment. Like huge applications. So, just think about it. I'm unemployed today. And I need help today because I'm unemployed today. But the state systems in existence were so overrun by applications they couldn't get to them all. So they don't even look at them. They don't even process them for years. Imagine that. I'm unemployed today. But I gotta wait a year and a half until the unemployment even acknowledges that I have applied for unemployment. Just the practical reality of that. Insurance. People's homes burned down and they had insurance. And insurance companies dragged their feet for years before paying out. And I won't name names of the good versus the bad insurance companies. But, you need the money now. You want to find a home now. You don't want to sit there and be homeless for 2, 3, 4 years. Well, you used to be middle class. Now you're lower working class because you had to go through this thing because your insurance company took years to pay out for no reason. Well, no, there was a reason. So the state systems are just not there for people at all. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have a sudden influx of all these people. This is what happened to America in the 1880s, when all of a sudden you have all these immigrants. And why are they coming? Because they used to be farmers, and now there's machines doing the farm work, and they all got fired en masse at the same time. And so half the globe is just moving around, and nobody has jobs. And a lot of them ended up in America. And the people now who are saying, you know, that America is my country, the vast majority of them came here in the 1880s or 90s under the same exact conditions that the Haitians are coming here now. Second thing about systems, people go a little cuckoo. So the fire was huge. And, 6 years later, there's still regular support groups for people affected by the fire. And everybody talks about it. And it's nice. I'm in California right now at my California home. And it's nice to be here because everybody understands. Versus other places where people don't even know about the fire. But here, it's just implicitly understood, all this mess that you couldn't possibly explain. And part of that mess is just how crazy the city got. A lot of people got PTSD, and I already have PTSD or had it before the fire, and it got worse with the fire. But the thing is I already knew I had it, and I already knew how to manage it. The people that don't know they have it, they don't realize that their emotions are a little wacko and out of control, and so they think that they're getting really upset because of what somebody else did, and it's the other person's fault. So people are getting fights in parking lots over stupid stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. People who knew they needed help and knew they needed emotional sorting after that trauma, couldn't find mental health because the mental health services were so overwhelmed, just like the example with unemployment I just gave you. And I had so many conversations with friends in Paradise talking about what's happening in local government, where people are just bickering because they have PTSD and they don't know it. And this town of 30,000 people has suddenly shrunk to 2,000 people, and they're trying to move on, and, it's difficult. In my local area, when COVID hit, COVID is hitting a community that is already, a little bonkers from the fire. And patients were literally assaulting ER staff for insisting that they wear masks. Patients didn't want to wear masks. And they didn't want to wear masks so badly that they actually physically assaulted the doctors who were trying to help them. And that was happening. So having COVID hit on top of the fire was just unbelievable stress for the community mentally, and unbelievable stress on social systems like unemployment. So I had switched insurance, and the change in insurance forced me to get a new PCP because my other one wasn't on the program. They always do that, and then you got to find a new doctor, So I have to try and find a new doctor, and I couldn't. Everyone I called, they're not even answering the phone. They don't return messages. And I'm thinking, my impression from what I saw, is that they were so strained from the stress of the campfire and then COVID that they're just having meltdowns. And they can't deal with it, so they don't even bother to answer the phone. Nobody has any openings, so what do? So yeah, I don't remember how many months I kept calling people, but yeah, nobody called back, and the stress was unimaginable. And this is the point. This is what's going on in Springfield. You have this massive influx of people from a disaster which did not happen in America in the town next door. It happened in Haiti. Although the reason that Haiti is undergoing all these political coups and gang violence and all that other stuff has to do with the natural disaster of the hurricane, but it also has to do with the U.S. and the way U.S. has kind of inserted itself into Haiti's sovereignty. And there's, lots of examples. You can look on Wikipedia for all that, So all of these people are fleeing this terrible, awful stuff. And what's happening in Springfield is what exactly happened in my community. The social services, you got to wait in these huge, long lines. Nobody can get anything done. So it is affecting the residents there. The fact that these people are there. And what happened in my community is what I believe is happening in that community. I think it's human nature. There's like two ways to react to that. Like, okay, my life, I have all this stuff I have to deal with. There are Haitians running around everywhere who are acting weird. They're flying the Haitian flag, which of course they would. They're Haitian. That's their country. And their ethnicity and everything that they're proud of, right? I like how people are talking about how they don't know how to drive. I'm continually amazed at how no one anywhere knows how to drive. And I have so many hilarious examples of that. And sometimes I myself don't know how to drive. But yeah, we hate when people don't know how to drive. And, how are you going to respond to that? One is you get angry and afraid about the chaos. Somebody's in your front yard speaking to you in a language that you don't understand. And, I've been to Haiti. And they are not as aloof as Americans are. When you go up to somebody, when I was in Haiti and I'd go up to somebody and say, hey, how you doing? They don't do what Americans do, which is like, oh, I'm fine. How are you? But you don't really care if they're fine or not. You're just saying it because that's the nice thing to say. That's not how they are in Haiti. You say, hey, how you doing? And they respond. They're really connecting with you. So I think that might have something to do with it because you have this guy in your front lawn who's like really connecting with people is normal for him. But Americans are used to having this kind of superficial connection with strangers, not a real connection. That's what we do here in this country. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. That's normal. In fact, just think of what would happen if people asked you that question and you told them how you actually felt. They would think you were weird, That's how we are here. So, in my community, in response to the fire, you had a lot of people that were, angry about all the chaos that created. And the big thing that everybody got upset about was the homeless. Because it was just a nightmare. Because they had to lift the camping restrictions. Because you had this whole entire town that had nowhere to go but camp. Every piece of green in the whole city was taken up by evacuees. But word got around in the homeless community that camping restrictions were lifted. So the homeless from, who knows, maybe like 200 miles in every direction all came to town because they could camp now. Whereas everywhere else they can't camp on public property. So in addition to all these evacuees, we have this massive influx of homeless people. And the evacuees, over the course of like 4 years, slowly are, getting themselves settled. So now, 6 years later, who's left? All these homeless people that came when the camping restrictions are lifted. So one way was people just getting really angry, get rid of the homeless. And, a lot of them use heroin, a lot of them use meth, and both of those two drugs are associated with a lot of property crime. And so they want to get rid of the homeless, and I don't blame them, because there is an association between those two things. And there was, I would guess, an uptick in crime, but you can't get rid of them. All you can logically do is move them around from place to place to place, which is what they did. And it was always the wealthier parts of town getting the police to come and clear out the homeless from the park next to their home, so that the homeless would then end up next to the parks of the poorer people in town who did not have the, power or leverage to get the police to clear them out from there. So that's where the homeless ended up, and that is where they remain. Unfortunately, I live in the poorer part of town, which we'll get to in the fun part of the story. The second way that people reacted, and this is really important, is they came together as a community even more than before. Because we all had to go through this as a community, and we know how hard it was. And right now, when the rest of the country is arguing about politics, no one in my town here talks about it at all. At all. We are just as neighborly before. It's as if this craziness dividing our country isn't even happening, because here we're still a community, which is important, because this is not a Democratic or Republican stronghold. It's a rural community. My neighbor has chickens, and actually my neighbor also has geese. I remember when they slaughtered them to eat them. That's what they do. They're farmers. So you got some Republicans who are calling, these liberal people vermin. And then you got the vermin living right next to the Republicans, and nobody cares. Nobody's disparaging anyone, attacking anyone, refusing to listen, or anything. You know what they're doing? Is they're being very careful not to bring up politics, because they know it's all crazy and they want to get along. So, you meet somebody in town that you don't know very well. You don't know exactly where they're going to be with their politics, or whether they're going to be rude or disparaging or attack or whatever. So everybody carefully doesn't bring it up, and that helps us get along. It's awesome. And then I have conversations with people, and they're not using taglines. Everybody's always saying the same thing over and over again. Once two words come out of their mouth, all the other things they're going to say. Nobody here is doing that. They're using words and phrases that are uniquely their own and saying what's on their mind, rather than making the most important thing word for word the same as what's important to everybody else. It's wonderful. So, two reactions. One is getting angry about the chaos and wanting and demanding action be done about these people. I mean, homeless are a vulnerable community, just like refugees, just like the evacuees from the fire, and demanding for action against them doesn't really help anyone, because, like I said, all they do is move them around the city or move them into the poor parts of town. It doesn't solve any problems, and they're already vulnerable. And the second thing is coming together as a community and realizing, like, oh crap, we got a problem here. We gotta pitch in. And I love that. I love that no one's talking politics here. It is so refreshing. And I know America cannot wait for that to happen. And it can. All we have to do is just stop. Just avoid the topic. Talk to your neighbors. And, talk about what really matters, which is our country, or whatever we think that matters that is not politics. You know what I'm saying? At least that's what my community did. And I get it. Because, there are limits to, being nice and understanding and everything like that. Because, sometimes there are problems you got to take care of. And, I was horrified by the noxiousness that people use to talk about the homeless, Like, they don't care about anything. All they are is drug addicts and, everything like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Well, they're all over town. So I actually just went over and talked to them. And I found out that, a lot of them are on drugs, like everyone says. But a lot of them are also, disabled vets that don't have homes. People were shooting at them. I saw the bullet holes in the tents of these homeless people. People were driving by in their cars and shooting at all these tents of homeless. That's how bad the situation got. So, the homeless community, who knows what they were going through, but they're dealing with all of this anger by everybody else, and I come home to my California home, and it had been taken over by homeless people. There's like 20 people in my house. And there's evidence of people shooting up all over my house. And I'm like, holy crap. So the police didn't help at all. So I got all these homeless people in my house. And I either got to give up my house to them, which is what they were trying to take over my house. Or I got to get rid of them myself. So that was the situation. And, I can be really angry at the police. I mean, how can I deal with these people? They're all armed. Each one of them has, like, a knife in every pocket, like 5 or 6, which they were happy to show me whenever they wanted. 2 of them had guns. Although I found out later that the big scary gun was actually a BB gun. But I did not think that at the time. And so these people are in my house and they are refusing to leave. And somehow me, little old unarmed me, has to get rid of them all by myself because the police won't help me. Talk about pissed off, right? But that's not how I handled it. Because I know what their position is. California law is screwed up. And they couldn't help me because what they had done, it was they know California law. So I get threatened with a knife and then they're like, can we stay for the night? And then they videotape me saying they can stay for the night. So now they have me on videotape saying that I allowed them to stay for 1 night. And according to California law, if you permit them to stay 1 night, then you're stuck with them. So you got to go through the eviction process, which is horrible. So, they show this video to the police and the police can't do anything. They just can't. They can't help me. So initially the police were like, well, it's your fault for this and it's your fault for that. And they're just saying that because they can't help me. And it's not really my fault. I might have made a bad decision or two, but, come on now. They knew what they were doing. They did it on purpose. So I acknowledged that they couldn't help me, and I got those people out on my own. Because I'm not skilled when it comes to, guns, knives, and, violence. They're very violent. They're all meth addicts. Meth addicts are very violent people, and they make no sense. You can't reason with them at all. But I'm smart, and I figured out how to manipulate them, and I got them all out at once. And it was tough to do, actually. I had to threaten to burn down my own house. It's the only thing that would get them to leave. or that I was going to kill myself and there would be a dead body. Like, oh, we don't want to be in the house with a dead body. Oh my gosh, I need drugs. I'm out of here. Pfft, that's how I got rid of them. So I got rid of them and I locked the door. And then, and then called the police because, of course, now they're, coming to the house and being scary after I locked them out. And they were much more sympathetic to me when I acknowledged that they couldn't help me and that it's not their fault that I had to do this all on my own. It's not their fault, but I need your help now. And they were helpful. And you should see what happened next. Because, I don't know, like a month later, they ended up in a different house. And that situation was different because they clearly broke in and the owner was not home. Like, I walked in on all these people in my house, but that house was empty and a neighbor called the police. And then the police came, so there was no way they could reasonably say they were squatting or that they had been given any permission to be there. It was a 9-hour standoff with tear gas. And, the whole department, a 9-hour standoff to get this guy out of the house, the last one that wouldn't come out. And they sent a firm message to the homeless community that you can't take over people's homes, which of course they needed to do because they had successfully taken over my home. And so they got to get that message out. And guess what? It has not happened since then. So, that's kind of like what I'm talking about. I kind of created a situation by putting this idea in the people's heads that they could get away with taking over someone's home because it was so hard for me to get them out. So then what do? They go to somebody else's home and they do the same thing. So now the police have to deal with that. But also because I was able to talk to the police and explain to them what exactly happened, they took action, and problem solved. They're not breaking into people's homes and squatting anymore, at least not that I've heard, And that happens by understanding the other side. Like, why are the police not helping me? Well, I understand why they're not helping. The police are like, why is this lady acting so crazy? Well, here's why I'm acting crazy. I'm doing this, 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 and this. We understand each other, and then we solve the problem. And I really learned something valuable from that experience, I mean, community always starts with understanding the other side, but there's limits, The future's uncertain. We never know what's going to happen. And, I'm always responsible for how I choose to treat others. But when someone's trying to slash me with a knife and I'm unarmed, which actually happened, it's kind of okay to be mean. I called her the C word. Which I don't think I've ever called anybody that, But, you got to do what you need to do to protect yourself when this is happening. But you don't need to wait, go back. Where's the picture? You don't need to protect yourself from this guy. He doesn't have a knife. He's not trying to slash you. He's not drinking anyone's blood. He's just walking across the street with an animal in his hand. And, I'm kind of wondering what happened there. But, whatever. And, people are different. When I was younger, I learned that Russians are scary people because they enjoy taking freezing cold baths in the middle of winter. Who would find that enjoyable, I mean, there's different cultures and different beliefs and everything like that. And when you're encountering with people that you don't understand, it's like, what are they doing, And yeah, it's not surprising that they don't know how to drive, I didn't see a lot of cars in Haiti. I saw a lot of bicycles, So, my mom can't drive either. And she refuses. She always calls me up. And I was like, Mom, are you driving? I'm not talking to you. No. don't talk when you're driving. It was distracting. Anyway, that's what I think is going on in Springfield. Is that, you know, their social services are strained. Like right here, you know? And their social services are strained. So there's two reactions. One is we need action because I waited for 4 hours at Social Security and nobody could help me or whatever. Or with the welfare office or whatever they're talking about. That happens, you know? The whole community has to bear the weight of all these extra people that are there. But those extra people, they are there for a reason. They're refugees. So those people who are angry, we need to help them. So they can, you know, either not be angry about waiting in line or, you know, whatever. You know, because they're bearing the brunt of America who has helped this group of people because they all went to that town. And pulling together as a community is really what we need. I mean, I'm so tired of talking about politics, and we just don't need to, because all of these different kind of problems can't be solved if we argue with each other. So it's human nature, you know? I'm not saying anybody's a bad person. It's just human nature. It's just what people do. And the only way that we can do the right thing, which is, you know, not be angry, not be fearful, not be, like, upset. The only way we can do that is if we do it as a community, because, you know, humans are kind of predisposed to, you know, go towards the negative. That's just how we are as human beings. It's not anybody's personal fault, you know. That is my evaluation of the evidence and my evaluation of what I think is going on in Springfield, based upon my experiences with what happened in my town when the same kind of, you know, influx of people happened for another reason. And it is a very, very strong, if not the strongest, principle of my faith that we work hard and not victimize people who are struggling or the powerless. I mean, of course it has limits, right? Because when the powerless take over your home, you gotta take action. You know, when somebody is holding a knife to your throat, you gotta take action. But when you're worried about that happening, it's not actually happening. That you don't have to take action for what you're worried about happening. You take action for what's actually happening. And right now, I think that, you know, like I said, this is my own personal thing. It's just because it's such an important part of my faith, and I'm not imposing that on anybody else and saying what anybody else would do. But I'm just saying, if I were in Springfield, I would be trying to get community, trying to bridge the gap so that everybody together can deal with this strain that is currently happening in the community. That's what I would do.